Okay, Captain Larry in California. What we're doing now is testing the tubes for the Valiant. So what we've done is we started with a list, and so we've got every tube in the Valiant listed, and what we're going to do is test them in the tube tester. But before we do that, let's make sure this thing is centered right. Before we test them, you take every single tube and clean it. And I did that just with a damp, and I don't mean wet, but a damp small piece of paper towel. When these tubes are used and the ink has gotten hot on the tubes, you can wipe the ink off. So what I did is put my thumb over the marking of the tube type and just cleaned around here carefully. And then there's sections of the tube where there's no printing at all. I want to make sure that's very clean. I've written the tube types on here. I don't always do that, but in this case I have. But I want to leave room because I'm going to test these tubes, and I'm going to mark the transconductance and the filament life reading on the tube, so that I know what I've got later, and I'm going to write that in the chart. So I take that transconductance reading, which is the amplification factor of the tube, and write it down here, compare it with the value for the new value in the chart, and I'll calculate that as a percent. And it's easier often to write that on the tube as a percentage. If a tube is not at least 85% of new, and if it doesn't have a high filament emission, you reduce the filament voltage. I'll show you how to use the tube tester next. But you reduce the filament voltage, and the amplification factor, if it's a new tube or an extremely good tube, will just stay rock solid. If it's a good tube but used, it may drop off a little bit. But if it's got a weak emission, a poor filament, weak emission, then the amplification factor, the transconductance of G sub M, will go way down, and that's a tube you're going to cull out, as well as I'm going to cull out anything below about 80 or 85%. Depends on the purpose of the tube in the thing. If it's a clamp tube, it's not very critical. 80% is good enough. Modulator tube, I want them matched, and I want them right up there. Final amplifier tubes, you like to have them above, you want to have them as nice as you can. They're still good down to 75 or 80% if they're well matched. But anyway, then I'll make a marking here on the list if a tube needs to be replaced. If it's no good, I'll write NFG on there for no good, and then after I replaced it, I'll put an R up there and I'll fill in the rest of this. I'm going to go through the whole thing, voltage regulator tubes, audio amplifier tubes, oscillator driver tubes, finals modulator tubes, rectifiers, low-level audio tubes, every single thing, bias rectifiers, every single thing will be tested, and it'll be noted here. And once I've gotten these amplification factor, the transconductance readings for these 6146s, I'm going to match up the two best tubes I have with the most similar transconductance and the best filament emission that I have, and I'll put those together as modulator tubes. The three tubes in parallel on the final aren't as critical. It's nice to have those, be pretty much all the same age and capability, so that you don't have one tube hogging all of the current and wearing itself out. But anyway, so that's what we'll do. Next thing I'll do is I'll set up the tube tester, and I'll show you how to use it.